Om Agyanatimarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpadrubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, dear friends, colleagues, thank you Srivas and Tapamishra Prabhus for organizing this event. There's a saying that use it or lose it. If you don't use something, you're going to lose it. Have you experienced that? We have acquired a few things in life, but if we did not care to actually use them, we will lose them. Either because we disregard them, neglect them, misplace them, or simply they will be taken away by the course of time. I don't think that the importance of reading Prabhupada's books is necessarily under or overestimated, emphasized in our movement. I think it is rather a question of what it is called here, enhancing the culture. Now, culture means different things. You can cultivate a field, agriculture. You can cultivate something. So you have to have a fertile soil, you have to sprout the seed, you have to protect it, nourish it, so that it brings fruit. So that can be culture. Culture is also a way of how to preserve tradition, art, the wealth of a certain section or class of society that is considered culture. So what culture do we want to establish? Do we want to further? Do we want to propitiate in our society for Krishna consciousness? These are fundamental, basic questions, but they're important questions nonetheless, because if we neglect the fundamentals, often we get lost in the details. You have paper and pen, you can take notes if you like. You can take anything and prove anything with it. Am I right, Professor? You can take anything out of context and prove anything with it, according to your motive and your intention. So the question should really be, what is our motive? What is our intention in this Krishna consciousness movement? I think Srila Prabhupada defined it very succinctly in his 7 purposes of ISKCON, that to bring society together at large in order to establish the principles of Krishna consciousness and to share them with one and all. And for that, the publishing and distribution of his books would fulfill all these different purposes, these 7 purposes. So, just as a little mind map, we're going to speak today about culture, but you don't really start off with culture. What you start off with is practice. So everything starts with practice. And practice really means Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, which means every day or all the time. From practice develops habit. From habit, character is formed, and if you have a lot of people with character, then you can actually develop culture. So this is the sequence, how things move, not the other way around. So what are our daily practices? I have done studies, I've been around the world more than 15 times, and these are breaking news, shocking news. Less than 10% of our members have all the books, and less than 10% have read all the books. This is shocking news. If you would tell Prabhupada that only 10% of our people have actually read your books, only 10% actually have them in their homes, I don't think Prabhupada would be very pleased. I don't think Prabhupada would be happy with that, or leave it at that. He would say, this is wrong. What can we do to change this? It is beyond the scope of this small presentation, but I just give you a few pointers, a few ideas. There is no meaning to food if there is no hunger. How long can you go on without food. For those of you who are mechanical engineers, how long can you run a car without oil or petrol? It simply won't work. Not too far, right? Like without petrol, okay, you could say there's a little bit in there, but if there is no oil in the engine will blow up. So by reading Prabhupada's books, what we really do is we take in our subsistence, our food, through oral reception, Guru Karnadharai. By hearing from the spiritual master, we're actually taking our spiritual nourishment, our spiritual food, without which we cannot sustain life. Another example, if you're an astronaut and you're going out from your capsule, you're connected to that space capsule by your wires, your tubes. If they're cut, you simply float off into outer space without any hope for salvation. So in a similar way, if we're not connected through the lifeline of Prabhupada's books, we'll float off into outer space. And we have seen a lot of people float off on different tangents. Now, practice really becomes important if you have a real need, just like in my service of training preachers and book distributors. You can't give something that you don't have. It's a simple law of physics. If you don't have it, you can't give it. And people take one look at you, and they look at you very clearly, because people don't hear so well these days, but they look very closely. So they will look at you, and they will decide in a few moments, do you have it or not? Like you go up to the shops, to the vendors, and your question on your mind is, do you have my stuff? Do you have my goods? Do you have my food? Can you deliver? That is the bottom line. So unless we daily practice and we actually imbibe the teachings of Prabhupada's books by studying them, we'll only do lip service. When the book distributors met Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco, he told them, don't just distribute my books, also read them. I've written these books for you to read. Otherwise you go up to people and you tell them, buy this book. And they say, what's in it? I don't know. My spiritual teacher, he has written these books for you to read and for me to sell. It will not be very convincing. So why only 10% have read our books? We can give so many reasons, we can give so many excuses. Bottom line, it's a lack of taste. Again, taste is something that has to be cultivated through daily practice. Just like, did you know if you read one verse a day, you can finish the Bhagavad Gita in 2 years? Some people look at a book and they say, wow, 1,000-page book. Never going to read this. You ask them, can you read one verse a day? They say yes. Everybody will agree, right? One verse a day. Can you do that? Yes. Please say yes. Yes. Thank you for working with me. So, in 2 years you complete the Gita. Do you know that the average American only reads 2 books in a year? And I don't want to mention what kind of books they read, but 2 books in a year. So, if you read one verse a day, the Bhagavatam will take you 46 years. Most of you can still do it, okay? One verse a day, you can finish the Bhagavatam. I meet devotees all the time who are in the movement for decades and they have not read the Bhagavatam. It's scary. It's scary. There is an app, it's called Be a Sage. It's free. Be a Sage. And you can see how long it will take you to finish a certain book of Prabhupada. Be a Sage. You can download it for iPhone or Android, and you can see how long it will take you to finish your book. In this way, you have a plan. You have a very clear idea where you're going. This is all part of practice. Now again, many of you will say, well, I just don't have the time. Has your mind ever told you that? I just don't have the time. I have a very simple trick for you. You take your alarm clock and you set it 1 hour earlier. And here is your extra hour for reading Prabhupada's books. This morning I read how Kardama, after giving Devahuti 9 daughters, was about to head out to the forest. And she was happy because she had experienced everything that there was to be experienced in this world materially, but she was unhappy because she had such a qualified husband and she had not gotten the greatest gift of liberation, of fearlessness. So she made a request that he please give her that, and then Kapila Muni arrived and he started instructing his mother on the process of devotional service. So I read this morning before Mangal Arati. If you want to have vivid memories, read before the day gets too busy. That's the best time, between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, before things get too busy. So you can write down, get up early. Huh? Prabhupada sacrificed his sleep to give us these books. Every night for many hours he was translating. Another habit of practice is you read a chapter of Bhagavatam every day. In this way you actually get an idea of the sequence, of the chronology of the Bhagavatam, how things flow, the stories, the teachings. It actually starts making sense. Otherwise, if you just read a few minutes here, a few minutes there, a few minutes there, it's really hard to get the flow of it. So try to read 1 chapter of Bhagavatam a day. It really makes a difference. Now I know some of you will say, this sounds horrendous, this sounds drastic, this sounds way above my scope. So there's another program, it's Chad. It's you read 1 chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. Either the verses and the translations, or just the verses, or the purports. It takes you anywhere from a few minutes up to 15, 20 minutes. How many of you are chanting a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day? There's about 4 or 5. We have here a credit card. It's a Chad credit card. It's honored in most of the shops here in Mayapur and in major malls around the world. You can buy cars and airplanes with it. So I have these credit cards and we will issue them to you for those of you who are ready to take up this. Chant 1 chapter Bhagavad Gita a day. Try to see how it makes a difference in your life. And this is a challenge. You know, like in sports, they give you the 21 or the 30-day challenge, and they say, if you can break it and establish a habit by doing something for 21 or 30 days, you can actually create that habit and enforce it and implement it. So if you want to go from practice to habit, you have to make it a regular routine. Not once in a blue moon, not when you got nothing better to do, but when you're actually focused, you will do something on a daily basis. So that habit will gradually develop into character because it just becomes of who you are. It just becomes of who you are, what you do, what you imbibe. Have you ever had the experience that you heard some Monday news or you were in some association and you picked up some information and you just started repeating it without questioning it? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? Thanks for your honesty. Whatever association we are in, that will rub off on us. Whatever information we expose ourselves to, that will influence the way how we move in the world and the way how we communicate and what we actually transmit. So everything ends in the heart. I live in the Bay Area of San Francisco. There's a sign which says, don't dump drains in the bay. So you should put signs on your ears. We can issue a new set of earrings. And it says, don't dump drains in the heart. Whatever enters your ears, it will drain in your heart. You may think this is just a news flash, this is just a movie, this is just a song, this is just some mundane little conversation, a little bit of trivia, a little bit of chat. Everything ends up in your heart. And then when it comes time for you to deliver, to speak, when you have that moment of truth, when you're in front of that person who looks at you and goes like, do you have something for me? Do you have something meaningful? Do you have something that will change my life? And we open our mouth and all comes out is Fox News or CNN or whatever you've been, Hollywood or Bollywood, whatever you've been absorbing. Even what you say may be Krishna consciousness, but the vibration around it will be mundane. It will be mixed. So don't do that to yourself. Try to cut out the fluff. Cut out the stuff that just distort, divert, and give that, that frequency that is really not tasteful. How to create this and how to sustain this. There's a few simple ways that I'd like to present before I open up for questions. I mentioned the app, I mentioned chat, the chapter a day, Bhagavatam or Gita. I'd like to mention reading circles. It says that it's good to study in pairs. Chanakya says you should study in pairs, you should travel in threes. So find a study partner, somebody who is of like-minded disposition, of a similar svabhav, and you can share your ideas. You can also have Skype conferences where daily you read Prabhupada's books for an hour. I just finished the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada was mentioned here in our course, and I thought, let me take a little break and do a few things before I get started again. But then my friend Tara, he called me up on Skype and he says, we're having these reading sessions, and do you want to join in? And I say, yeah, sure, of course. Well, your first canto. Okay, so we started. And now I'm almost through third canto. And it's just in a matter of a couple of months, 2 months. Because the Bhagavatam is highly addictive. I know some of you have phone conferences with which people can call in and they are studying together. But there's so many new ways of media. You can also meet at somebody's home if you're not too far away from each other. And in this way, you make it a daily affair. You make it a daily affair. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Especially those who do not live in a temple and do not have a daily Bhagavatam class. Make it a daily affair to study Prabhupada's books in the association of like-minded devotees. Now there is just reading, where you just read and relish. Then there is also study, where you go deeper into certain subjects. When you go through the verse and the purport, there's always certain words that jump at you. Have you noticed? When you read the books, there's certain words that kind of jump at you. They kind of like, hey, hello, I'm here, Like Vishrambena and Gauravena. These two words, what do they mean? It's in Vishrambena and Gauravena. The two qualities that we should have, which are explained in the relationship between Devahuti and Kardama Muni, how the disciple should be towards the spiritual master. He should serve in a friendly way, with great intimacy, but he should keep his respect and appreciation. So that is the proper attitude for a student. To be friendly, to be familiar, but still to keep respect, not to take for granted. So these words will come jumping at you, then write them down. You all have pen and paper. Srila Prabhupada said to remember means to write it down. To remember means to write it down. Somebody who's serious, you always see them taking notes. Now you may think, there's so many devotees in Mayapur, there's 10,000 people in Parikrama, there's 100 getting initiated over there, there's people jumping up and down here, there's people already going for lunch. Why am I sitting here listening to this guy jumping up and down here? Because the pen is mightier than the sword, and also mightier than the spoon. Because it is the pen that draws up ideas, and ideas change the world. Communism was spread through distribution of literature. So Christianity was spread through the distribution of literature. Krishna consciousness is spread through the distribution of literature. The pen is mightier than the sword. So if we learn how to use the pen efficiently, you can change the world. You may say Prabhupada was one short, small man sitting in Vrindavan in his room, just minding his own business for 8 years, but his pen changed the world. Now, why are these 10,000 people out on Parikram? Where did they come from, these 10,000 people? They came from Prabhupada's pen. That's where these people came from. So if you want to create a revolution, you learn how to work on your pen. And that means, as one writer once said, I spend my entire morning putting one comma, and I spend my entire afternoon, again, taking that comma away. That's editing. It's a big job. So you may wonder, how can I have impact? I'm just a little person. How can I impact the world? Very simple. By first of all associating with Prabhupada's teachings daily and allowing these teachings to impact our own life, and then by sharing them with whoever and however many people that we associate with, by imbibing the qualities and the culture that is being described in these books. Now, there are obstacles, there are distractions, there's a lot of random moving objects in the world, there's 8 billion people. Most of them are not complying with our desires. Have you ever experienced that? Like at night when you try to go to sleep and some people have other plans, like they want to, do other things. So, but then you read, Amanitvam, Madambitvam, Ahimsak Shanti Arjavam, and you're like, okay, maybe I should try to practice this tolerance business and without false ego and humility. Maybe that's something I should try to apply now. It looks great on paper, but what does it mean in my life? So people are not looking for information, people are looking for transformation. There is enough information out there in cyberspace. There is terabytes of information. People want realization. They want to know, what does this mean for you? And that's where application comes into place. It's not enough to memorize. We're not having our conferences and our educational system, excuse me if I'm wrong, to just train people how to put more information into their hard drives and then to spit it out. But we're trying to train people how to apply this wisdom, this information, and to acquire realization, that they be able to share with others in a compassionate way, according to time, place, and circumstance. Just to give you an idea how reading the books is not sufficient. I joined in the early 80s. It was still the zonal acharya system. For those of you who came late, certain people thought they own a certain geographical area and everybody has to be their student in that area. We thought that the Vyasa-san is the seat of the certain teacher who manages that zone. We did not understand that Vyasa-san is the asana of Vyas, or the one who represents Vyas. So we thought whenever somebody gives a class other than our zonal acharya, he has to sit on a different seat, because he cannot sit on that seat. Even if other gurus, sannyasis, or other zonal acharyas come, they have to sit on a different seat, because they cannot sit on that seat. We were reading the books, but we were not imbibing the culture. We did not know the nuances. We did not know all these subtleties, the finesse of how to apply it. Why? Because there was no dialogue, there was no checks and balances, there was no culture of, we call it, that people are allowed to disagree. That has to be there. That is what Brahmins do. Like, we all different. We all from different backgrounds, from different cultures. We have different styles, different likings and dislikings. But we're here. And so far it's going okay. Right? And we should foster this culture of dialogue. Srila Prabhupada said, every year the leaders should come to Mayapur to discuss unity and diversity. So there will be always diversity. Also in studying Prabhupada's books. And we have conservatives, we have hardliners, we have liberals, we have moderates, and all these flavors and colors of the rainbow are perfectly permissible, as long as they're within the umbrella of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and they're meant to further the greater good. Before I open up for questions, I have 1 or 2 more points that I wanted to make and share with you. We're really on a treasure hunt here. When I read Prabhupada's books, I feel like I'm on a treasure hunt and I'm mining for gems. I'm just looking for gems. I'm just looking for all these nuggets, all these memorable, precious stories, anecdotes, analogies, words, sayings, not just so I can use them, but just things that touch me, things that are meaningful to me. So there's different ways of reading. As I mentioned, we can just read through, or we can study deep. You can take notes, you can analyze, you can study purports of other acharyas. What really has inspired me is to hear the realizations of other devotees. So when you have a study circle, people can reflect on what they've read and what it means to them and how it applies in their own lives. Have you ever had a question and then you open a book somewhere and something just answered your question? Has this ever happened to you? Yes. Say yes, please. Yes. Thank you. Huh? So that is spiritual literature. It's meaningful. Why? Because it relates to me. There is meaning in it for me. So to have daily communion with Prabhupada really means that we daily study Prabhupada's books with an open mind. We do not have, I asked you about your motivation initially, we do not have a preset idea of what I want to get out of this. We just read the book and we just try to absorb what is the author trying to tell me? What is his mood? What is he trying to convey here? Instead of, if the noise in my head is too loud and I have already too much going on, has it ever happened to you? You read a paragraph and after the paragraph, you paused and you thought, what did I just read? And you couldn't remember. Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? Why? Because the noise was too loud. There was too much of my own ideas, my own motivation, my own projection happening. So to be like a blank slate means I really take myself back and I just want to hear and absorb. These books are Prabhupada's devotional ecstasies. Prabhupada said, the best of myself I've put in these books. You study me through my books. We know that Vani Seva, the service to the instruction of the Guru, is eternal. The physical form is limited. It's only according to time, place, appreciable. But the instructions of Prabhupada in his books are eternal. They're always available, at least for the next 10,000 years. We're very fortunate to have these books in so many languages across the world. For now, we have distributed about 520 million of Prabhupada's books in the last 50 plus years. That's to the tune of 10 million books a year. It's something, but actually it's a drop in the bucket. In the last Bhadra Purnima, 8,000 Bhagavatam sets got distributed. It's a good start. But in comparison to the millions of members that we have, people who think, I'm a member of ISKCON, I follow Prabhupada, I like Krishna, I'm a part of the Hare Krishna movement, it is a drop in the bucket. If we share this and we make it a culture that if you're a Hare Krishna, you have a set of Prabhupada's books at your home. Any preacher, I will not go to anyone's home unless they have a full set of Prabhupada's books. I may go there to bring them a set of books, and if the people say, I don't have any space, then that's wonderful. Then we say, okay, let me look at your library. Okay, we'll take out the TV, or we take out all these other mundane things, and you put Prabhupada's books there. It's a blissful experience. You know, you install the books. It's like installing a deity. And now this year, in Pune, Radheshyam Prabhu, my dear friend, I've asked him, you're number one in education and in recruiting, why don't you, now that you built your new temple, get more into book distribution? And he said yes. And he's going to people's homes and installing Bhagavatam sets in so many people's homes. And it's becoming like a craze. Everybody wants to have him. Everybody wants to have that. So I'm talking to you as leaders, as educators. If you're looking for ways how to have more impact, speak about the Bhagavatam, study the Bhagavatam, bring the Bhagavatam to other people's home, inspire them to read it and to study it, establish study courses, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Bhav, Bhakti Vedanta, guide people, answer their questions, and you will see how you can feel the weight of these teachings, of this Bhagavatam, all around. Our appetite for distributing Bhagavatam will increase the more we appreciate it. Because the more we like something, the more we like to share it. You like to share your favorite food. You like to share your favorite song. Why? Because it's dear to your heart. It's something that you feel strongly about. So, I like the Bhagavatam. So I like to share it. I like to distribute it in all its different manifestations. If we do not apply this knowledge, we'll not only lose it, but it will cause us mental indigestion, constipation. We have seen how people who simply crammed more and more information in their heads, they simply got more and more bewildered and confused because they could not process and they could not actually put things in the right place. So application means devotional service, especially sharing. Prabhupada wanted us to share this knowledge with others. He wanted us to give these books to others. In this way, when you go out and you start distributing the information, you start sharing your realizations, your own appetite, your own need will increase. And then your own ability to speak and to deliver will increase. And in this way, it's an ever-increasing competition. And the two, they feed off of each other. I'd like to share my favorite verse before I close that I just read in the section where Krishna comes after Brahma performs his austerities for creative empowerment, and Krishna comes and shakes his hand and he tells Brahma, don't be depressed and don't be anxious. Whatever you have been praying for has already been granted so many times. Have you ever been depressed or anxious? Yes. Thank you for your honesty. Whatever you've been praying for has already been granted so many times. That's just one shloka out of 18,000 shlokas. You just engrave that on your mirror of your mind. And whenever your mind starts freaking out and going, "Wah!" Does your mind ever freak out? No, you look very calm and composed. But sometimes it does happen that the mind freaks out. Then you just pull out that shloka and say, what about that, you know? Brahma had to create all the life forms, all the species, all the planets. That's a crazy big job. Brahma was frightened. He was anxious. He was depressed. He didn't know where to go, what to do. But Krishna told him, don't worry, I got you covered. Whatever you want to do, it's been done many times before. Just follow the process, have faith, and everything will be fine. Another favorite shloka is Yatredyante katam rishtas trishnayo prashamoyata nirvairam yatra bhuteshu nodvego yatra kaschana. That whenever and wherever the Bhagavatam is being studied, what happens? There's no more envy. Envy gets eradicated. All these unwanted qualities, they become absent, at least for the time while the Bhagavatam is being discussed. So this gives you a win-win opportunity. This gives you a ceasefire, a peace of mind phase every day where you know, I'll be okay. I don't have to worry. I don't have to feel depressed or anxious. I don't have to feel envious or feel that anyone is envious of me because I'm studying the Bhagavatam. And that blessing is there. It's given. It's money in the bank. Try it out. Please try it out for yourself. See what it means to you and how you can share it with others. If it doesn't work, money back guarantee from this seminar. So we would like you to share some of these ideas with your friends, but charity starts at home. Apply it first, because then you will speak from realization. And people will not just want to know, oh, where did you hear that? But they'll go like, wow. Like I distribute books and I tell people simple stuff. Like we're not humans having a spiritual experience, we're spirits having a human experience. And they go, wow, wow. Did you just make that up? And I say, yeah, sure, of course. I just throw this stuff out of my out of my elbow, you know? No, that's all just here from this book. Take it, read it. You can find out for yourself. It's the simple things that make a big difference. So remember, Prabhupada said in Vrindavan, Radha Damodar, from his pen came all these devotees, came all these temples, came this whole revolution. If you want to be part of the revolution, study Prabhupada's books every day and share them with others. We take a couple of questions or reflections, and then our second speaker for this morning will sum up. Yes?
The hunger, how to keep the hunger.
How to keep the hunger?
After reading for 10 times all the books.
Lord Chaitanya heard the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj for hundreds of times because he was so interested in their pastimes. If we see the benefit and we actually have a taste for something, like if I tell you, you know, there is, what's your favorite food? Something that you can't eat. Pizza, okay. There's very nice pizza. Do you have hunger for that? Always, right? Even if you're not hungry, you have hunger for that. Because why? There is taste, there is appreciation, there is meaning to it. So once there is taste and appreciation, the hunger is automatic. It's not a theoretical thing. Oh, I have to read now. Initially, it will be a little bit mechanical. I started Krishna consciousness when I was 15. The books were a little high, the language was a little complex. The devotees told me, just read out loud. Have you ever done that? You read out loud? And you think initially, why should I read out loud? You know, I know how to read. Why should I read out loud? Why not just quiet? Because the sound vibration is very powerful, it's very potent, and it enters into your ears. And the ears are like the sky, they're unlimited. They can absorb so much sound. When you learn how to read on a regular basis and you read out loud, after a while things start making sense. And what doesn't make sense, write it down and ask somebody who knows. Okay? And in this way taste develops. Tapamishra Prabhu. We got microphones here.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For your talk this morning. I wanted to just request you to share your experience with both chat and the app, specifically with chat. Can you share with us how the journey has been? When did the program start? How many devotees are participating with now?
I didn't start the program, nor do I know how many people are participating. It's a subversive underground organization, so this is highly classified information. There are many secret members of chat out there. I know Prabhupada said that you should chant a chapter. It's a very good thing to do. Also, if there's offenses in deity worship, one should chant, a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And it's possible to commit offenses in our practice of devotional service. So in this way, we can safeguard. It's been going on for a while. The app has been out since, I think, about a year. And it's helped devotees just to have a certain goal, because goals are potent. Once you have a goal, did you know if you read 41 pages of Bhagavatam in 1 year, you complete the Bhagavatam? Simple stuff like that. It does make a big difference. Yes?
I understand
the
concept very much. Thank you. Would you know how many similar programs like chat are going in the world of Islam or Islam community? Do you have some estimate?
There are many, and there has to be a sharing of best practices, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're hearing from different people from different parts of the globe, because Krishna is the ability in every individual, and people come up with these ingenious methods that really make a difference for them. For me personally, I set myself a task which is, whenever I'm not at the temple or not doing something that's life-sustaining, I want to be exposed to the transcendental sound vibration. If you would ever note down just for a week how much time you spend on the internet, on social media, on your electronics, you'd be shocked. Your mind would be blown away. If I tell people I read Prabhupada's books 2, 3, 4 hours a day, that's just normal, because I just don't do the other stuff. So you still have 24 hours. So these are simple personal practices. Always carry books with you. Now we have these e-readers and phones and tablets, so you can have a book with you wherever you are. Did you notice that there is so much time wasted just where nothing's happening? So just start reading at that point in time. And of course, when you start reading, some people will just get up and leave. Some people will fall asleep. That's just part of life. But I remember when I was a new devotee, it was also hard for me to really feel that need, that urgency. But by my service of preaching and book distribution, my appetite grew stronger, my fire grew stronger, and I could sustain my concentration and my enthusiasm much longer. So it is a matter of practice, and the habit will eventually be formed. Thank you for pointing out.
Thank you.
So let us give an applause to Prabhu for his wonderful presentation.
Hare Krishna. So we do have these cards here available. I put the stacks there on the table, and you can pick them up for those of you who are thinking of joining JAD or enlisting other members. You know, they're available. I also have a small gift for my friend Srila Prabhupada here. The pen is mightier than the sword. So, one of my teachers. And the notebook.
Wow.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.